Hello, and welcome to Dig a Podcast, a show that tells the in-depth story behind the songs of the greatest band that is, was, and ever will be, the Beatles. In this season, Season 1, we will explore the Beatles' first LP, Introducing the Beatles, or our UK listeners would know it as Please Please Me. Introducing the Beatles was originally scheduled for a July 1963 release, but came out on the 10th of January 1964 on VJ Records, whereas Please Please Me was released on the 23rd of March 1963 on EMI's Parlophone label. Let's continue through the album with the next song,
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Chains. In their lean early years, the Beatles were also on the hunt for new music to learn in order to perform their stage act. Through those early times, as they gained confidence and exposure, they became quite in demand locally as well as in Hamburg, Germany, being regulars at clubs such as the Cavern Club, the Jacaranda, the Indra, the Top 10, the Kaiser Keller, the Star Club, as well as other dance halls and special engagements. Many long hours of entertainment were required of the band, most times many days or nights in a row. That being said, a large repertoire of material needed to be continually learned in order to keep their regular following as well as their growing audience coming back for more. This gave the Beatles the opportunity to perform the music that they loved, such as from the greats of rock and roll as well as rhythm and blues. The music of Elvis, Chuck Berry, Carl Perkins, Little Richard, Arthur Alexander, Larry Williams, Eddie Cochran, Gene Vincent, and Ray Charles were regularly heard on their set on any given night. The American girl group The Cookies probably wouldn't fit into anyone's list of favourite rock and roll groups, as they surely didn't with the Beatles either. But the Beatles could definitely recognize a well-written pop standard when they heard it. With our manager Brian Epstein having a record shop, NEMS, we tend to have the opportunity to look around a bit more than the casual usual buyer, stated Paul McCartney from the liner notes on the album On Air Live at the BBC Volume 2. These liner notes also indicate that it was George Harrison, not Paul, who saw the potential in the Cookies single Chains, and thereby purchased the record at NEMS Records shop in December of 1962. By January 16th, they already perfected the song enough to perform it for BBC Radio. During the last gasp of their Cavern Club days, they added the song Chains to their, by now, huge repertoire. Being fresh in their minds, it was chosen to grace their first British album, Please Please Me, as well as their first American LP. Songwriting history. Jerry Goffin and Carol Cole were songwriting partners who worked in the legendary Brill Building in New York City. The Brill Building was a center of activity for the popular music industry, especially music publishing and songwriting. It housed a large group of songwriting teams, mostly duos, that enjoyed immense success and who collectively wrote some of the biggest hits of the 60s. Carol met Jerry while attending Queen's College and decided to become songwriting partners. They eventually married, and after being hired as professional songwriters at the Brill Building, they began to write a long string of successful hits, beginning with Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow by the Shirelles. After this topped the Billboard pop charts, their credibility as a pop songwriting team put them in high demand, as well as increased the pressure from the song publisher Don Kirshner to churn out more hits for his clients. In the process, they raked up an unprecedented string of hits for many artists until the divorce in 1968. Their most identifiable hits include The Locomotion, Take Good Care of My Baby, One Fine Day, Up on the Roof, You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman, I'm Into Something Good, Go Away Little Girl, and even Pleasant Valley Sunday, which was performed by the imitation Beatles group The Monkees. A minor triumph for them was placing their song Chains with the girl group The Cookies in the fall of 1962. Unlike other brio-building songwriters like Neil Sedaka and Neil Diamond, Carole King had a difficult time translating her successful writing into successful recording career. Her answer song to Neil Sedaka's top 10 hit Oh Carol, entitled Oh Neil, didn't make any waves on the charts. She did have a modest hit with It Might As Well Rain Until September, which peaked at number 22 on the pop charts in 1962. But other than this, her recording career was put on hold in the 60s. The 70s proved to be a different thing entirely. Starting with her 1971 album Tapestry, her recording career blossomed. Tapestry sold 22 million copies worldwide and includes her number one smash It's Too Late, as well as her version of the groundbreaking James Taylor hit You've Got a Friend. Cole continued a successful career throughout the 70s and early 80s. Jerry Goffin, whom divorced Carole King in 1968 after becoming the parents of future singer-songwriter Louis Goffin, has continued a career in the music industry well into the 21st century. He continued collaborating with Carole after their divorce, but also worked with many other songwriters such as Barry Goldberg and Michael Masser. Later, top 10 hits composed by Goffin include I've Got to Use My Imagination by Gladys Knight and the Pips, the theme from Mahogany by Diana Ross, Saving All My Love for You by Whitney Houston, and Miss You Like Crazy by Natalie Cole. Jerry also was one of the first people in the music business to notice the talents of Kelly Clarkson, whom he hired to do demo work before she auditioned for American Idol in 2001. Having the Beatles record a Jerry Goffin and Carole Cole song does not necessarily add too much weight to their career resume. Your average Beatles fan may not even be aware that they recorded Chains, or that it was written by Goffin and King, being that radio airplay of the songs had been next to non-existent in the States or anywhere else for that matter. On the reverse, the Beatles choosing to perform and record this song shows early on they could recognize the talent of a soon-to-be prolific and credible songwriting team. In fact, it's been said that Goffin and King were very inspirational to Lennon and McCartney in their formative songwriting years. McCartney has been quoted as saying that he wishes he could write as well as Goffin and King. The Cookies, who recorded the song, got their beginning in Brooklyn, New York, where they started their recording career in 1954. Singing to Atlantic Records, they scored a Billboard Top 10 R&B hit in 1956 with In Paradise. While recording for Atlantic, they were hired to sing background vocals for many artists on labels roster including Ray Charles, and whom they accepted an offer to become his regular backup singers, changing their names to the Raylettes. They were soon discovered by Neil Sedaka, who used them as background vocalists on some of his songs, which led to being enticed by Don Kirshner to join his publishing company, Alden Music, where they continued to do background vocals for such artists as Little Eva. 6 years later, once again with the name The Cookies, they were signed to the Dimension label, recording songs written by songwriters at the Brill Building. They recorded a number of songs written by Jerry Goffin and Carol Cole, Chains being their first entry onto the Billboard Pop chart, peaking at number 17 in late December 1962. Their biggest US hit was another Goffin King compilation, Don't Say Nothing Bad About My Baby, which peaked at number 7 in April of 1963. They had only one more hit in early 1964, Girls Grow Up Faster Than Boys, number 33, before their pop chart history succumbed to the British invasion. Earl G. McCree, one of the members of the Cookies, went solo later in 1964 and had one pop hit. The Goffin King penned I'm Into Something Good, which peaked at number 38 in August of that year. But once again, the British invasion dominated, and Herman's Hermits took the same song a couple of months later into the top 20 to launch their extensive US chart career. The Cookies then reformed and released their last but unsuccessful record on Warner Brothers in 1967. Recording history. This song was also one of the 10 songs recorded on that historic day of February 11th, 1963, the day chosen to produce the first Beatles album, Please Please Me. The third of 3 sessions of that day, the evening session, was held between 7:30 and 10:45 p.m. at EMI Studio 2. Of the 6 songs hurriedly recorded during this evening session, Chains was the 4th. Just over 3 hours were required to finish the album, being that the Beatles had to immediately go on the road the next day to continue their first national tour with Helen Shapiro. Between approximately 9 and 9:30 p.m., 4 takes of the song were performed, although the first was deemed the best. This again was a fully live recording with no overdubs or edits. The faded ending to the song was done on February the 25th during the remix. Both the stereo and mono mix of the song, as well as their entire first album, was created by George Martin and engineers Norman Smith and A.B. Lincoln on February the 25th, 1963, in the control room of EMI Studio 1. Thanks for listening to Dig a Podcast. You can subscribe to our podcast on Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other podcasting platform. This has been a Team Wilco production. Until next time, if you know what I mean. Do I did? No? Okay.